Hi, everybody. Welcome to the OnStage Blog Podcast. And today we are here to talk about all things theater. So excited. And I am theater critic Rachel Wagner, and Chris Peterson is here.
Hello, hello.
And Greg Ehrhardt is here.
I am here and not blinded by the eclipse. So
Yes.
win for me.
Yes. So there was the big solar event this week. And we talked off camera, but Greg, you were the one from our group that embraced the eclipse this week.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to it, probably more
Mhm.
so than most of my peers, just because it's, something you can't really recreate anywhere until virtual reality really comes here and we can do it every day.
Yeah.
But I was in Connecticut. We had 92% coverage, totality.
Good place.
And we had a really nice sunny day to see it. So we had a perfect view for it. And I got the glasses, was with my colleagues at my day job, and I had a really good time. It was really cool.
Oh,
Not as dark as I thought it would be, even with 92% coverage, but did get darker and chilly. So it was really cool. I'm really glad to have experienced it.
Yeah, it's too bad. I was working, so I didn't get to. I was substitute teaching, but because I think it was pretty decent. It was a little cloudy in Utah, but I think we had pretty good numbers. But yeah, I missed it. But I enjoyed watching everybody else's footage on Instagram. And you didn't get to see it, did you, Chris?
No, I was silly and said to myself, look, I'm too busy working. This will happen next year. I'll catch it then. Didn't know that the next time an event like this particular eclipse is not going to happen for another 20 years. I probably would have made more of an effort, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I saw pictures and it looked great, and that's enough for me.
Same. Well, we have some fun theater related topics that we're going to cover. We have some quick topics, and then we have our main topic that we're going to talk about. It's always a lot of fun, and we want to hear, if you're listening, we want to hear your thoughts on all of these. Please put in the comments or on Twitter. And so the first thing, we always start out talking about just some of the stuff that we've been seeing. And I'll start off on this. I saw 2 shows since our last recording. And one of them was Of Mice and Men at the Parker Theater, which it's always an interesting experience as a theater patron, because when you get a subscription to a company, a lot of times you're like mixed on, some of the shows. Some of you are more excited for than others. And that would be the case with this, because I love Parker Theater. They're absolutely incredible. But I really don't like Of Mice and Men. I just don't like the story, especially the ending. And I never have, even since high school. And so I was like, oh, should I go see it? But I was like, you know what? This was a big risk for them to do, a story like this. And so I'm gonna go, and I'm really glad that I did, even though I still hate the story. Because it was absolutely outstanding. I mean, it was the acting, I would put up there with any regional theater in the country. It was so good. And the production and just everything else. And they have at the Parker Theater, they have themed concessions for the show. And so they had kind of lemon California sort of themed things, and so that just makes it, that adds a level. And anyway, I just think it's a good sort of lesson that you can still appreciate a good piece of theater even if you don't like the story.
Rachel, sorry, can you go back to the concessions part? I'm sorry that
Yes.
this is the part I'm going on to. What was their drinks? Lemon tea, California. So, like, what was the beverage they served?
They had like an orange drink for I mean, it was a little bit of a stretch for the Mice and Men.
Okay.
Yeah, but they were kind of going citrus. And then they had a lemon lemon cheesecake sundae thing. It was delicious. And and some of them, sometimes it's easier than others to make the thing, but I just appreciate, because as a film and theater critic, I got real tired of popcorn. And so at one place that doesn't just have popcorn, and so yeah, it was delicious. And it's just a special, wonderful little theater. And I do really appreciate that they tend to only do like period pieces, this theater. And so they've done Pirates of Penzance, they did Christmas Carol every year, and they did Edwin Drood and things like that. And so this was a risk to do of Mice and Men, and I applaud them for that.
Do you know why they do only period pieces?
I don't know why they only do period pieces. I guess you just try to stand out.
It would seem to be harder to do than non-period
yeah, I guess
pieces,
you just try to
right?
have sort of
More
your
expensive.
niche,
Yeah.
that people know.
Fine.
And so that's kind of their thing. But they did Pride and Prejudice at the beginning of the year, and it was absolutely amazing. I loved it so much. So anyway, I just thought that was a good lesson to me that, that even if I don't like the story, it can still be worthwhile.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's good to hear, right?
Yeah.
That I'm not sure I could say that about some of the stories I don't like, but you're probably more open-minded than me, so very good. So good job on your part.
What do you think, Chris, about that? Have you ever had that where you just don't like the story, but you liked the production?
Ooh, yeah, it's happened a couple times. Trying to think of the last time. I mean, A Vice Event is a tough show to get through. I don't like the importance of being earnest. I'll be honest with you. It's a play I've never really gotten into.
Yeah.
Most Shakespeare, I'm not really into.
Mhm.
No matter how good the performances are. Yeah, and really, okay, I don't want to sound like a theater nerd here, and but like, you know, uh, classical theater that from like Bertolt Brecht and like this is getting into deep theater history, but like we're talking like Dark Ages type of things
Yeah.
where I can't latch on to any of it, and so no matter how brilliant the performances are, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other, this will go into our kind of our main topic eventually, but the other show that I saw was Pretty Woman, the musical. Talk about complete opposite of Mice and Men. And this was the Broadway touring, the national touring company of Pretty Woman, the musical. This is at the Eccles in Salt Lake. And I felt like I hadn't heard that good of things about it, but I felt like kind of as the resident rom-com, girl, I needed to see it and give my thoughts on it. And I thought it was okay. If you had an affection for the movie, it's basically a shot for shot. I mean, they make a few little changes here and there, but the songs were completely forgettable. I couldn't tell you a single one. I mean, it does have some like steamy parts, just like the movie. So I guess if you're into that, that's fun. But I didn't really like the lead, Vivian. She had kind of her belt was sort of really forward, and I just didn't think it was that pleasing. So yeah, I would never pay the big money to see it. That's for sure. So
At least makes sense as a stage adaptation, because that wouldn't be a movie I would have picked to be
yeah.
like, let's see this on stage.
Well, especially because I don't know what happened, but evidently they weren't able to get the iconic Pretty Woman song approved. And so
Right.
they like tease at it a couple times, which is weird. And then they don't play it until after like the very end of Curtain Call. They play it. So it's not actually officially part of the cast recording. And so that's very strange. I feel like if you don't have that song, like you shouldn't even bother. Like why have a Pretty Woman musical without the Roy Orbison song? So I'm sure there's a very interesting backstory about that. But what was interesting is that my friend Stanford, he left at intermission. He hated it. He did not.
Really? Why is that?
Yes. He said he thought it was boring and he didn't like the singers. He's a professional singer. He was with the Tabernacle Choir. He's a really wonderful singer. And so he just, he's like, I don't like it. So that's another mini topic we thought we'd kind of dive in to, of when you should leave a show that you're not enjoying.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
So that movie, so I'll be honest, I've never seen Pretty Woman. Pardon me. Sorry. Take away whatever movie card I have.
You've never seen the movie?
No, I've never seen the movie.
Oh,
Isn't
okay.
that a bit of a regressive movie in terms of its gender politics, or no?
it depends on how you look at it, because we're all real like sex worker positive these days, and you know, there is sort of he does kind of, there's like a Cinderella element to it that I guess like strong like hardcore feminists might take issue with, but like and they do try in the musical to like, there's a scene where this scummy character tries to make a pass at her, and it's in the movie, the guy Edward punches him, and in the show she punches him in the face. So that was like, they tried to kind of update it a little bit.
Okay.
But I mean, if you're the kind of person that like anything with sort of a princess or fairy tale kind of feel to it is like, you know, not feminist, then maybe. But I think that it's not as much as maybe you would think.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And they have
Sure.
amazing chemistry, Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. And that is something you lose in the stage version, because you're so far away, first of all, and it's just not them. You know, it's like not that chemistry is just not the same. And
what's funny is like Pretty Woman did it was a box office smash.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I mean, I've never heard a single person be like, "Oh, we've got to revisit that movie," or "Got you know, it's time for my annual viewing of Pretty Woman," or biannual. Right? It's just not. It's kind of like Kramer versus Kramer. You know, Kramer that did a bajillion dollars, and yet, I mean, have you ever seen that on cable ever, or streamers, or anything like that?
Well, rom-coms can be like a comfort watch for a lot of people, particularly for women. But yeah, I mean, it certainly is one of the biggest most profitable movies ever made. But yeah, I just
100% for its time. It would be huge hit for its time, 100%. But it's not like, I'm just thinking about like the decision to make that, well,
especially if you can't get that song. I just think if you can't get that Pretty Woman song, like forget it. Like, why are you even bothering? Like, to me at least. But it was bland at best. But yeah, I mean, have you seen this Pretty Woman, Chris?
Yeah, so I haven't seen it live, I'll put it that way. I saw a slime tutorial, as the kids call it, bootleg of the actual Broadway production. It is dreadful. It's dreadful, like for many reasons. It's bad. It's like if bad AI wrote a musical, but with an Elton John score, which is hilarious because now it's scheduled to open on the West End apparently, and everybody's like, well, we'll see.
Oh, Pretty Woman is.
Yeah,
I thought that Elton John did The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, maybe that's it. Sorry, I'm getting my terrible like rom-com movies mixed
this
up.
one was actually written.
Wait, Devil Wears Prada is a bad rom-com, Chris?
Is it a bad rom-com? Oh, I shouldn't say bad. It's not a rom-com.
I was gonna say I wouldn't even say it's a rom-com.
Right.
Sorry, my bad musical adaptations, I should say.
Oh, okay.
Mixed
together.
So
we're gonna fight if you called that a bad movie.
No, Pretty Woman, terrible adaptation. Devil Wears Prada, even worse.
Would you have walked out of based on what you've seen, would you have walked out of Pretty Woman at intermission like Rachel's friend did?
No, maybe it's and maybe we'll talk about this later, but like the optimist in me is that it gets better in Act 2, and then when I'm wrong in that assumption, I get really angry when I leave at curtain call. But I always try to say, look, maybe it gets better, and I'll stay. But yeah.
Well, what's one that we were going to make this a mini topic? What's a show that you have walked out of? Chris?
For me, I'll be honest with you. I've never walked out of a show midway.
Never.
For any reason, even if from medical discomfort to unruly audience etiquette to the show being just dreadful, I've never walked out. Now, that's not to say I haven't wanted to walk out. And for those of you who haven't read, we wrote an article about this week on the blog. But there was one show that, like, if someone said to me, like, what's a show you almost walked out of if you did walk out of it, It was the 2010 revival of Promises, Promises,
Oh,
starring Sean Hayes and Christian Chenoweth on
oh,
Broadway. Now some people would be like, for shame, how dare you would walk out on a Christian Chenoweth performance.
yeah.
Here's the thing, Sean Hayes, before he won his Tony last year for that brilliant performance that he did, he was what I called a show killer. It was one of the things where it's like you brought Sean Hayes in when your show is about to close, or like you had no faith in your show.
Uh-huh.
He's not funny. He's an awful Broadway performer. He's not a good singer. And this is current day thing. So like
Right.
walking in, I had low expectations, but I didn't realize like when you add Sean Hayes to a Burt Bacharach score, it's like the seventh circle of hell. So I wanted to walk out desperately, but I was with a woman who I just married her, so she was my new wife at that point.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't, and she was all about it, so I couldn't be like, all right, we're leaving. So there were a lot of factors of why I stayed.
Test
But
of
I already
marriage
married
there.
her. You have nothing to lose, you know.
I know I
It's
should
like
have
engaged or dating.
just
That's what you-
left. But I literally, I sat there in first act, second act with my playbill over my mouth like this, like covering my face,
Yeah.
because I was so just absolutely the only redeeming factor of that production, by the way, Molly Shannon had taken over for, I think it was Kate Baldwin at that point, or Kate, I can't remember the actress's name.
Wow.
Molly Shannon was fantastic, but she was in it for like 5 minutes. So
Not
for
bad,
5
huh?
minutes, I was
Wow.
really happy. So yeah.
Well, I would never walk out of a production that I was actually reviewing, like that they had comped me the tickets that I was reviewing. I would never do that. But I've only done it twice recently. Once was last winter. I went to see this production of The Adventures of Robin Hood at this small community theater, and I wasn't feeling that good, and it was snowing super hard, and I hated everything about the production. It was terrible, and I hated the worst thing about it was they had this really bad backtrack that was super synthesized, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to be fighting the snow the longer I stay. And I just need to leave now. And I'm so glad I did, because the roads were nuts. And so that was a good choice. That was inspired. And then the other one, and also if I, whether play or movie, if I did walk out, I would, and I was writing anything about it, I would of course admit that within the review. But the other one is I walked out of Puffs at intermission. I'm just not that big of a Harry Potter person. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't like, it's not enough to be like, oh, look at that little detail and that thing and those. And to me, every joke was what I call a looks like joke. That looks like something from the movie. That looks like something from the books. And it wasn't actually funny. Like, just looking like something isn't funny. You have to actually like tell a joke, about it. And I my friend Scott Savage, who's been on the show, he absolutely loves this play. It's our biggest disagreement. He thinks it's so amazing, and he's like, "Oh, you missed so much good stuff in the second half." I'm like, I don't know. And there is, I guess it's on Broadway HD. So I told him one of these days I will watch the second half, and but
Don't
it's
bother.
just,
Don't bother.
it was part of my season pass, so he was like, I'll give it a shot, but it just was not feeling it by the second half, and I mean by the intermission. I was like, this is just not for me.
You're spot on. As someone, as a self-professed Harry Potter fanatic, I can't stand Puffs, and it's a show that is atrocious in Act 1. It's atrocious in Act 2. No offense to your friend, but he's not a real Harry Potter fan if he likes that show. No, I'm kidding. But like, no, it's dreadful. And Greg, the guy, Salem, same style of humor, but applied to Harry Potter. It's just awful.
That's what I would have said. Like, I think the only play I would have considered walking out on was Witches in Salem, which is written by the same guy. I'm not trying to pile on him because, again, to me, it's just, you can't say one sense of humor is good and one's bad. It just wasn't mine. So, like, as long as I didn't, and now again, I saw it on a press, yeah. So I was going to stick through it no matter what, and we're covering for the blog. But if I just saw it on my own, like, let's waltz in and see the show. and I didn't pay a bunch of money for it, I would have given serious thought to walking out on which is in Salem at intermission, because it would be like, all right, this comedy's not for me. Like it's for other people, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I think probably comedies are more likely to have that.
Exactly.
It is so subjective. Well, before we move on to our big topic, Chris, you wanted to mention some to Christopher Durang.
Yeah. So sadly and suddenly we lost one of the great playwrights of our era, if you will. Christopher Durang died last week at the age of 76. And, for those of you who don't know who Christopher Durang is by his name, he's written some of the more, I guess you could call it like, off-kilter plays. He did, Vanya, Sasha, Spike. I never get those names right. The Adventures of Betty and Boo, Catholic Schoolgirls. I mean, he's done so many plays. Let me put it this way. He is a college theater staple. That's where I got to know his work. Just countless scene studies, countless productions of his work at a college level. And, he was an academic as well. He taught at both Juilliard and Yale and really inspired a generation of playwrights, especially in those who were writing about comedy, wanting to kind of take a satirical look at a lot of things out there. And so, just sad news. I mean, no one, I mean, we still haven't, I don't think it's been announced, the cause of death, but it feels like 76 is young these days. So, it's just sad. So, all love to his family, his friends, his partner. Just absolutely devastating, because again, like it's one of those, playwrights that, he did win, I believe he did win 2 Tonys. 2 of his plays won the Tonys. But yeah, it's one of those things where you talk about the great playwrights of our, it's not, his name isn't necessarily in the Mount Rushmore, if you will, along with, the Colin McPhersons of the world and others. But he just is for a subset of people in their education of theater, he's huge. And so, very sad news. So definitely want to give Christopher Durang all of his roses and thank him for many a wonderful memory of my theater education.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
We wanted to talk about movie to stage adaptations, because we had some different opinions. Rachel, you had mentioned in an email chain about Pretty Woman, and it got Chris to sort of talking about what were the best and worst that he had seen. So we had the idea to sort of write about this for the blog, but also collaborate together on what's the best 5 and what's the worst 5 movie to stage adaptations. We're collaborating right here in the podcast. So we're going to workshop it. We're going to talk it through. We might, change our picks a little bit.
What we did is we had 14 that obviously we both have to have seen them. So that we made a list of 14 that both Chris and I have seen. And so that's kind of what we're going off of as far as 5 favorites, 5 non-favorites.
Some big ones, obvious ones, that maybe you haven't seen, that are really great or really terrible that we know from critics' reviews we can include as well. But so the outcome of this pod is we're going to come up with our top 5 and bottom 5. We're going to publish it on the blog with a little bit of obviously an explainer, like typical article, and there you'll have. So all right, so let's start. I have the list here. I have the list of 14 that we can start with. And again, if there's anything obvious, anything big, I think for the definitive, not necessarily your personal top 5, your personal bottom 5, but just the definitive top 5 and bottom 5 movie to stage adaptations. Let's start with, I'm just gonna pick randomly from this list. Let's go with Mean Girls the musical. So an interesting movie to stage adaptation. So let's start first. Again, do we think this is top 5, bottom 5, or nowhere, just like in the middle, just not bottom 5, just first blush? Rachel, what do you think?
Of this 14, I have Mean Girls the musical at 9.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I'd probably put it bottom 5.
Oh, why bottom 5?
Just because it's not very good. No, it's
let's explain. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, it's one of, like, we mentioned this earlier with the puffs. It's like, it's a look at this moment, look at that moment. Like, remember this from the movie when you love this moment that happened? We did it in the musical too. There's nothing the score's not great. There's not a memorable song in the bunch. Yeah, it's just, I mean, if you love Mean Girls, the movie, just watch the movie, you know, and then like when they came out with the new movie musical version of it, it's, oh my God, it's even worse. It's even like answer. So yeah, I to
Mm.
me it's bottom five.
I would say it's in the it's okay camp for me. Not I don't but yeah, I like some of the songs. I think are kind of fun. But yeah, I mean it's not like
So
great.
Rachel, so nine, you had 9 puts it just outside of the bottom five.
Yeah,
So
of the
maybe we will
14.
start this at 10. We'll just slot this at 10 for now, and then we'll see how the rest of the list shakes out.
Okay.
That sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm sliding this at 10 right now. So like the fifth on the bottom five. All right, let's go to I'm getting a Christmas story.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, a Christmas story. I'm just gonna write this down. So I haven't seen this play version. The movie version is one of my most loathsome holiday movies ever. So I just want to instinctively put this in the bottom five, just based on that. But Chris, what's that first blush? Is this a top five, bottom five, or middle of the road?
It's a weird musical. I would put it at like in the top 14, bottom five. I would probably put it like 14, honestly.
Ooh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah,
All right.
it's not, I mean, even with a Pasek and Paul score, it's not great. So yeah.
I have it at 8 in this ranking. I like it. I like this. I think the songs are really fun. I like the movie. So it's one of those ones that if you yeah, it's not going to win you over, Greg. That's for sure. But
Well, I will not be singing. I will not be singing.
but I think it has some pretty catchy songs and yeah, I like it. So I have it at 8.
Okay, so maybe so is it a let me so let's take a little pause and ask you both. Do you look for the stage version to mimic the movie version, or do you want it to be something completely different, or something else in between? Like, what do you look for in a successful stage adaptation of the movie, Rachel?
It really depends. Like I um I have ones where that are quite different, like The Lion King, pretty high, but then I have ones that are pretty close, like Legally Blonde, the movie also high. I mean, the musical also high, and that's pretty close. I don't know. It just depends on how it all comes together. There's so many intangibles in a Broadway show. I mean, a good example is actually this Back to the Future, the musical. It is like, I mean, even the close, it is so similar to the movie. If you don't like that movie, like the very few people who don't like that movie, but if you're one in that camp, you will not like this musical. But I love that movie. It's one of my favorites, and the spectacle of it was so fun. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. But it is shot for shot. So I don't know.
So when you're grading these, Rachel, it just comes down to how much you like the songs, and you're just
Yeah.
thinking of it as any other musical,
Like it.
and not.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going off of just just not this 14, like for me, one of the worst ones is Mary Poppins. I really don't like that. I my lowest we'll talk about it later, but that I think is very weak. But yeah, I think that's a very poor, and a lot of it is because they were hand tied by the P.L. Travers estate, and they had to
Right.
make it like the book, and the books are terrible, and so what are you going to do? It's
So,
tough.
Chris, going back to my question, do you want stage adaptations of movies to be like really close to the movies, generally speaking, or you want it to be its own thing, like really kind of exist on its own outside of the
Yeah,
parameters of the movie?
I'm looking for elevation of the material, to be quite honest with you. So if the
Mm,
musical unleashes new things about the movie that I didn't initially see, or makes elements or moments of those movies better because a amazing song, like Rachel just said, it adds to the moment. I mean, Shrek the musical is a good example of that. On paper, there's no way
I
that should be a good show.
Yeah,
Like that, like
true.
there's no way. But then when you watch it and you listen to Janine Tesori's score, you're like, oh my God, like talk about like making some of these very silly moments in Shrek poignant and
Yeah. And so funny.
significant and so
So
funny.
funny. It's so
Um,
funny.
yeah, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for is elevation. Yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, I like that. Rachel, would you agree that's a good criteria to judge a movie stage, is that it enhances or elevates the
Yeah.
material by its own existence?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
think even if it is shot for shot, like at least the Back to the Future musical, like elevated in the sense of spectacle,
Mm.
and like you want something to kind of hang your hat on.
Yeah. All right, so now going back to these Christmas Story did not elevate the material at all, so that's like maybe even de-elevates it, if that's a word, lowers it. Is that now, Rachel? You had an 8th. I think Chris had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's fun. I enjoy it, but fair enough. So
Well,
I would put it like if
we can
in
compromise.
between the two of us, I would have it at like maybe 12.
Yeah, so let's put it at 12 for now
Yeah.
until we slot these other ones. Okay. All right. We talked about Shrek the Musical. I believe that was on this list. Yes, it
Yes.
was. So you both loved it. So
Yeah.
definitely top 5.
So
I have it thinking first blush. Yeah.
I have it at 5, actually. But
Yeah.
it was, I mean, I'm not even that big of a Shrek person. It was a million times better than I expected. So it did have that. It was so much funnier. The songs are really catchy. And I have to say, the first time I saw it was a great production in an outdoor amphitheater, and it was so hot. It was probably 105 degrees outside. And I just was like, I don't know how they did it. They were amazing. Because those heavy costumes, like Donkey especially. Oh, but that was
one. There was a version of this on Netflix, some streaming.
Yeah.
I've seen this on one of the streamers.
The pro shot.
It's really good.
Yeah, I agree. It was very funny. It was way better than I thought.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
Where do you have it, Chris?
I think 5 is fair, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, it's definitely top 5. So yeah, I would put it at 5.
All right, moving right along. Let's do the Lion King. Lion King. Go ahead,
I'd
Chris.
probably put that at 2, number 2.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to sound like a hot take, but it is a better score than the film. Like the added, usually you don't have that, where like the new songs that they write for the musical that weren't in the movie aren't as good. Please let me know what you think about Aladdin. But in this case with Lion King, there are songs that are just devastatingly good, that are not like He Lives in You, Endless Night, that are just Shadowland, like unbelievable. And so like when we talk about elevation, like that, from a composition side of it, elevates it. And early in the podcast we talked about or earlier we were talking about musicals that are change agents and things like that, but like from a design standpoint, it revolutionized musical theater design. So number 2 for me.
I also have it at number 2. Incredible puppetry, and I've seen it a couple times, and it always takes your breath away. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Waitress.
Waitress I have at 7. I do think it's probably one of the biggest elevations from movie to stage. I mean, the movie's fine, like it's perfectly fine, but I think it's so much more memorable as the musical, in my opinion. I don't really like stories about cheaters. That's not my favorite, but they do about as well as you can with it. It's got some great songs. So yeah, I have it at 7.
It's about middle of the road here, Chris. What did you think?
That's actually, you know what, I had it like 6, so that I think is accurate, like 7. To Rachel's point, it is absolutely one of the best examples of elevating material. The movie's fine.
Yeah.
The musical is excellent. So I'm right there with her.
So that would seem to lend itself higher than 7, though, right? I mean, if it's really elevating, it's really excellent. It's one of the more buzzier musicals we've had, right? Why not higher than 7?
Well, just my 6 are like really low.
I was gonna say I've got better ones. Better ones to come, folks. Better ones to come. Yeah.
All right, let's do.
And I just like the story. Like, I don't love that story of the cheating. Like, it's just not my favorite kind of story. But they handle it pretty good.
All right, let's do Little Shop of Horrors next.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't know that this is based on a movie. It's a 1960 Roger Corman, super low budget. Of course, there's the movie they made off of the musical, but no, the original was actually like a really low budget horror movie. And then of course Menken and Ashman took it and made this musical from it. And it's so iconic. It's got so many iconic numbers. It's got such a legacy. And when I went to New York a couple of trips ago, it was my favorite of all the shows that I saw, the off-Broadway direction. It was just, I really just love it. And so I have it at 3. I have Little Shop of Horrors at 3.
Chris,
Yeah,
what do you-
I had it at 1, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
when the musical is so good, so iconic that it makes people completely forget that it's based on a movie.
Yeah.
True.
Interestingly
Yeah.
enough, that movie had Jack Nicholson in it, by the way, the original Roger Corman
Oh,
film.
did it?
Young Jack.
That's right.
Yeah, he plays the dentist patient.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's that good of a musical. I was in it, so
Oh, you
like,
were?
I played Mushnik in a college production, so a little biased towards
Is that
it.
why
but
you have it number 1, Chris?
that's why I have it number 1, obviously. But yeah, from this, which by the way, the funny thing is the stage production is almost completely different from the movie version that we all know and love. But the songs are incredible. They're fun to sing. They're fun to perform.
Yeah.
And I'll give it credit where credit's due. I mean, it was one of the first musicals that when they made the licensing available said you need to cast this the way that these characters were designed. So it paved the way for a lot of Black performers to shine in a musical when a lot of that wasn't happening. So yeah, I mean that's why I have it at number 1.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so you both have Lion King at number 2. So Rachel, we might as well get to what's your number 1 out of
My number
this?
1 is one of my favorite musicals. It's Hairspray is my number 1. I absolutely love the story. I love the songs. It's so like energetic and positive, and I mean, I could see it's one of those shows I think I could see every week for the rest of my life and never get tired of. I really do love it. And the John Waters movie is really fun. I enjoy it, but I do think that this even elevates it, adds a layer, with just these really catchy songs. So yeah, Hairspray is my favorite.
So Rachel, it's your personal number 1. Do you think it is objectively the best movie to stage adaptation for the list?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
Okay.
I think it is such a strong show. It has a wonderful message. It's got such good songs, so many good songs, and great dancing. I've never seen a production of Hairspray I didn't like. But I mean, it certainly belongs in this top 5 to me for sure.
Chris, where did you have Hairspray?
I had it right around 3 or 4, honestly. Like so, and for the same reasons. And it's an excellent show, great score. I mean, nothing against John Waters as a filmmaker, but his films aren't, typically of the highest quality. This is probably his highest quality.
Kinda.
Yeah, cult classics. But and what I love about Hairspray is he takes the spirit of John Waters and then just elevates it on that end. So yeah, no, very, very well. But I mean, won the Tony for Best Musical. So that I think it's one of the few on this list I'm looking. Yeah. It's one of the few that actually did win Best Musical on Tony. But interesting story about Hairspray for those of you who don't know. I mean, OnStage Blog is directly responsible for the way that Hairspray is now cast all over the world. Just a quick segue, but there used to be a clause, a loophole in the casting and licensing agreements that you could cast this any way you wanted to, which basically was allowed companies in Japan and Ireland and things like that to cast this show. So you'd have all Asian casts, or in some cases, all white casts performing Hairspray, which really doesn't make sense when you look at what the show is all about. Well,
yeah,
about 5 years ago, we wrote an article saying that was wrong and it should be changed. That story went viral. I got an email from Alan Menken, or not Alan Menken, excuse me. Oh my gosh, Mark Scheinman.
Shyman.
And he told me that they were going to reach out to Musical Theater National, which owns the rights, and get that changed, close that loophole. So now when you go and look at their licensing rights, it says that those roles must be cast with Black performers, even if you're in Japan, even if you're in Ireland, even if you're in Scandinavia. And for those of you who don't believe me that we're responsible, you can just Google that, and you'll see that they credit OnStage Blog as being the one that called attention to that. So, yeah, just a cool little nugget there.
Yeah.
Make a little trivia tidbit on OnStage Blog. Now, guys, unfortunately, we can't put both of these shows at number one. So we got to pick. We got to figure out which one is truly objectively
Hairspray
the
or
best.
Little Shop of
Yeah,
Horrors?
Little Shop of Horrors or Hairspray, or maybe Lion King. I mean, we can, if we can't decide either of these two, and you both are pretty
We did both have
good
that
at
one
Lion
too.
King.
I guess
I could, you know what? I could do Hairspray at number one and then move Little Shop to 3 on my list. Yeah.
okay. So that'd be
Yeah.
the same as mine then.
You're-
Hairspray,
You're good
Lion
with
King.
Hairspray being definitively like this
Yeah,
is the best movie. Yeah, it is pretty not transformative, but revolutionary, but it was a momentous show. It did do a lot. It really changed the way
Yeah.
movie to stage adaptations were done. All right, so we're gonna put in Hairspray number one. Okay. All right, so we're gonna put in Hairspray number one, Little Shop number 3, Lion King still number 2. Okay. All right, so we're all right. We're chugging along here. All right, let's do Newsies. Newsies. Chris.
Newsies I have at 6. I love the movie. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I know it has its flaws. But I think they took a flawed movie and they made it significantly better. There was a big glow up in this adaptation. Of course, it was done by the same people, so that helps. When you have Alan Menken back doing it, and it's got so many great songs. Santa Fe and Carrying the Banner and King of New York, and so many great dancing sequences, and it's just very entertaining. So yeah, I have it at 6.
So Chris, do you have Newsies in your top 5 or bottom 5?
Bottom 5.
Bottom 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is this bottom 5?
Because the element, and I definitely agree with a lot of what Rachel said. But I felt like the added elements that were created for the stage adaptation weakened the overall musical. So they created this character for a female, because if you watch the original movie, there's no real female lead at all. And they created this reporter character who's just the worst. And she has this song that like is now become an audition standard. Like Watch What Happens. It's just awful. And so, and then like they expanded on like the Joseph Pulitzer character. It's not good. They added more songs that just aren't good. And this is like, this is my, I should do an entire series on why, like when Alan Menken works with Glenn Sader, it just leads to just atrocious.
See, I'd say writing. To me, they made that character way better than Anne Margaret in the movie, and then getting rid of the Bill Pullman character, that was very smart, because then you're just focusing on just the boys. I think that was smart. I think the new songs. We disagree there, but
well, we gotta put this somewhere. So
I mean, I would be okay with it being like 8 or 9. Like that to me is okay. Like I would
just outside,
middle of the road. Yeah, just outside.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Well, again, as we fill up the bottom 5, then we can go back.
I mean, believe me, looking at our list, there's plenty that will occupy that bottom 5.
Do you want me to share which one I have at the bottom of this 14?
Yeah, go ahead. And we do have to quicken this up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
my number 14 is 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. This is an extremely weak adaptation of this musical. It only has 4 songs from the movie, and all the new songs are really lame. And it's a very silly musical. The movie's very silly. It's a comedy. It's not supposed to be taken seriously, but obviously if you're like looking at it for a message, it's problematic. But I just think it's a very poor adaptation of this movie.
I agree with everything you just said. 100%.
Do you think it's 14? Do you think it's the worst?
Oh yeah.
Worst of.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. All right. Good. All
Like I
right.
said, it only has 4 songs from the movie.
So really? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Mhm.
All right. What else? Rachel, go ahead.
Then my number 13 is where I have Anastasia. I love the movie. I'm a big animation person. It's one of my I have a lot of nostalgia around the movie. I love it. And they took like some of the problematic aspects of the movie with Rasputin and things like that, and they overcorrected. They made it really boring. They made it very serious. They changed Rasputin into this general, and it's all trying to be like a Russian Fiddler on the Roof, and it's just not fun. It's so slow, and I just think they just sapped any energy out of the movie. I really did not.
Yeah, it gets my title for the most misleading music
Yeah.
or adaptation, because what they tried to do is basically do the animated movie combined with like this 1941 version of the same movie, and
Yeah.
that's where the character of Gleb and all these other things people were, and it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And there's 2 good songs, and the 2 good songs are from the animated movie. So, love Aaron's and that songwriting team, but yeah, it just isn't great.
So you think second? Do you agree? Second worst? Is
Oh
there
yeah,
anything worse?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. Good. All right. All right.
Well,
What else do we have? We have
my
Moulin
number
Rouge.
12
Oh, go ahead.
is it might be a hot take because it won Tonys and stuff, but I have The Band's Visit.
Wow.
Number 12, I didn't think it had a
You're
single
gonna have to
memorable.
justify this
Omar
one,
Sharif was
Rachel.
the only song that I liked. I thought that it was really boring. I was just not. It wasn't an interesting story. I didn't, and I've seen the movie, and the movie is also a slow burn, but I just prefer it much more. It did nothing for me. I was like, this beat Mean Girls and Frozen, like that to me is wild. But there we go.
Chris. Okay, go ahead,
100%
Chris.
opposite. I had it in my top 5. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. I
But
don't think we can put this in bottom 5, Rach. I mean, you're welcome to your own opinion, but objectively, I think it could be a very hard sell to
I just
describe
didn't
this
think
as
it
a
had
bottom 5
any memorable
adaptation.
songs. I didn't think the story was interesting. I don't know. It just wasn't. So I think we should put this in the middle.
I mean, I'm fine with in the middle. Yeah. I just thought it was yeah, I've seen the movie too, and you're right, the movie is definitely a slow burn. And but yeah, there's things in the musical where I remember seeing it live and just jaw on the floor being like, oh my God, the way they staged that, or yeah. So
It
but I'm
elevated the
fine with it
material.
overall. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
Chris? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw the
Well, I'm
National
going to swap
Tour.
this at 6 for the moment, even though we really care about the top 5 and bottom 5. I'm just putting this at 6 for now. All right.
Okay.
Legally Blonde, the musical.
Yeah.
We haven't done that yet.
I have
go ahead, Rachel.
Legally Blonde, the musical, at 4. I think it is so entertaining. I think it's really funny. I think the songs are very catchy and memorable, entertaining. Laura Bell Bundy was so great. I just think it is a million times better than you ever think when you hear, oh, they're making a Legally Blonde musical. And it's just so entertaining, I think.
This was one I was so surprised. This was a huge hit, and everyone, I haven't seen this, but everyone I know who's seen this loved it.
Mhm.
So I mean, this was definitely one of the more successful ones we've had, especially recently.
Yeah.
But Chris, where did you have this?
Yeah, I had it up on the upper half of the list, honestly. And I didn't have it in top 5, but I had like in the in the higher mids, if you will.
Yeah.
For all the same reasons. It's a great score, it's funny, great vehicle for women, and definitely a college and high school musical staple right now. But yeah, really entertaining. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So could we put this 4? Could we put this number 4? Because 4 is open right now between Little
Yeah.
Shop of Horrors and Shrek the Musical. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mhm.
Makes
That's where
perfect
I
sense
have
to me.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think we only have 2 more.
That's correct. We have
Yeah.
2 more.
So I have Addams Family, the musical. I have it at 10, and I do think
Chris,
it has
did you
some.
have it bottom 5?
Yeah, I had a bottom 5 as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have it at 10. I think that there are some real catchy songs. There's some entertaining songs, and it is a fun show. It's one of those shows that I think is more fun to be in than to see. It's just be these characters and everything. But and I have seen some productions that I've enjoyed, but I hate that full disclosure. The last number in Act One is so long, and it's just I hate that song so much. But yeah, I have it at 10.
Yeah, did it add anything to the movie, Chris? I mean, this adaptation?
No,
Yeah, just
no.
sort
I
of.
mean, the
I
controversial
can't
take in this
remember. I
is
haven't
that it's
seen the
actually not
movie.
based on the movie at all. It's based more on the comic strip.
Yeah.
But still, it's not good. I mean, there's maybe one good song in it, which is sung by Wednesday called Pulled. But like that's it. That's it. Like it's not a great show.
So let's talk
There
about
was a
where
couple
this
of good
slots in
songs.
with everything else we have bottom five. So we have Mean Girls, the musical, Christmas Story. I think it sounds like Anastasia and Seven Brides are clearly the bottom two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I'd
whole
probably put it
list. So
above. I put it above Anastasia. In that bottom
yeah.
five there. So what? That's 12. Yeah.
But so is it better than Christmas Story?
I like that
Or
song
worse?
that Gomez sings about being happy, sad. Oh, that's a pretty
Hmm.
good song.
Yeah, I'd probably put it above Christmas Story.
Okay, so
About the
right
same for
now,
me.
so we have Mean Girls at 10, Adam's Family 11, Christmas Story 12, then Anastasia, Seven Brides, Seven Brothers. Is that
Yeah, that
Yeah.
works for me.
And then the last one we haven't talked about is I have Moulin Rouge at 11. It just did nothing for me. It was fine. I didn't hate it, but it was totally bland. I thought it was just I don't know. It just did nothing. It was
we don't have
really
room for Moulin Rouge in the bottom five as of now? Unless you,
completely
so you might pick
unmemorable
something
for
out,
me.
Rach?
No, I mean I'm fine with it being in the middle, but it just for me out of these 14, it would be 11.
Okay, Chris, any thoughts on Moulin Rouge before we
Yeah, I mean, I would put it on the bottom
summarize our?
half of. Yeah, I'd probably put it on the bottom half of the, whatever numbers left. It's 9, 8, like 8. Yeah, that's accurate, honestly, because it basically takes the uh like, oh, we're gonna sing 1632 bars of this popular song and on steroids. And if you watch, there's an SNL skit a couple weeks ago with Ariana Grande where they make fun of Moulin Rouge. That's accurate of how the musical adaptation happened. Now, I will say this: great choreography, staging, design is incredible, but just like any Baz Luhrmann movie, it's kind of a mess. And yeah.
So the choreography saves it from being like bottom five,
Choreography, and I
basically.
would
Like
say the
that's where it,
design. Yeah,
yeah,
those are
Yeah.
the two
yeah.
elements.
That's
Okay.
fair.
So our top five, I'll make sure we're all good with this before we publish this on the blog. So we got Hairspray, Lion King, Little Shop of Horrors, Legally Blonde, Shrek the Musical.
Yep.
We're good with that top five, and then bottom five, Mean Girls. I'm going from least worst to worst. Mean Girls, Adam's Family, Christmas Story, Anastasia, Seven Brides. Now, if we're good with, is there any other adaptation we didn't cover that only one of you has seen that you feel really belongs in the top five or bottom five? It needs to be considered.
I mean, I would have Singing in the Rain as number one. I absolutely love that adaptation. I also think the White Christmas adaptation is really strong. I also love the Spitfire Grill. Those are three that I love. But
Did White
anyway.
Christmas ever, Mary Poppins, ever make it to Broadway?
Well,
Yes.
did it? Yeah, I'm not
Both?
sure, but
Both did? Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, which musicals again?
White
Mary
Christmas.
Poppins and White Christmas.
Mary
Yes,
Poppins
yes.
did.
Yeah, White Christmas too.
Okay.
Okay.
It was like a like one of those like holiday limited
Yeah.
runs.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. But I was trying to pick a 14 that we haven't talked about a ton on the pod. We already talked about Singing in the Rain and Spitfire Grill, and those other ones a lot. So anyway, that's why I picked these 14. So
Chris, there be any others you'd want for consideration?
Color Purple. Is
Oh yeah.
a really good musical adaptation. I mean, there's a bunch. If we really wanted to get, I mean, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, I think is actually really good too.
I never seen either of those.
Trying to think. I will stand. Okay, this is just me. I will stand for Footloose, the musical. I think it's a much better musical than people give it credit for. And also Groundhog Day. Honestly, like that's one of the most enjoyable musicals you'll ever be at. But
I've never seen it, but I want to. I've heard it's
yeah,
really good.
it's really good. It's really good. So, but not. I mean, honestly, for I think in terms of for the list of hitting the ones that I think that, or, I don't think anybody could debate that the top five, honestly. Even the stuff that we didn't mention, I don't think there's. I'm just looking at a list here. There's not a single one that I would put above, um,
Top five that
Hairspray
we have.
or
Yeah.
Lion King or any of those. So yeah,
It's a
I think we
good,
nailed
it's a
it.
good top five. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and that's why we did it this way versus
Mhm.
because there's a way more than what we've covered, but we
Yeah.
wanted to also be finishing for worst five too.
Yeah.
So
There's
all right,
Beetlejuice too, was a big hit or medium hit. There's that.
yeah, yeah.
So anyway.
All right. Well, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about top five, bottom five. We'll publish this in the blog. We'll write a little bit more about the selections and why. And hey, listeners, you just saw our thought processes that goes into blog articles. So when we do deep dive investigations, it's way more involved in this. I don't know if we'll ever air one of those on a podcast, when we are exposing a theater for bad behavior, but maybe another one. So
Well,
so
yeah.
that's
So
a
let
wrap.
us know what you think, what your favorites and not favorites are. We'd love to hear in the comments things we didn't talk about. We'd love to hear that. Like we didn't mention Young Frankenstein. There's so many. So we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you share the episode with your friends. Spread the word. We would really be grateful. And Chris, where can people find more about follow you and the site?
All things OnStage Blog, literally, like OnStage Blog on Facebook, OnStage Blog on Twitter, or X, I should call it, Instagram, TikTok, things like that. So yeah, you can absolutely. And then of course, go to the blog, onstageblog.com. New content every single day. Got some really good articles. We just posted one about how to prepare for your first, full-time theater job interview, which is really, really good. So yeah, definitely give it a shout.
Yeah. Greg, what about you?
Same. Yeah, on Stage Blog, write for the newsletter. I contribute to the occasional editorial that we do, and also tweet about movies for at On Screen Blog, which is part of OnStage Blog, and I write as well.
Yeah, and you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and at rachelsreviewstheater.com and the Utah Theater Bloggers Association. Check all of that out. And also the Hallmarkies podcast, got lots of fun stuff going on over there. So please, if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us so much. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.